The satellite image was astonishing, to say the least. At first, the analysts thought it was a glitch. A black void had appeared beneath a section of desert mountains on the western plateau. Not on the surface, under it. The imaging software showed a massive hollow space beneath the rock, nearly 1,000 feet below ground, several miles wide. When the technicians zoomed in, the shape of the void became even stranger. It wasn't irregular like a cave system. It was structured, symmetrical, almost like something had carved the space deliberately. The anomaly triggered an automated alert within the Defense Satellite Monitoring Network. Within hours, the image had been forwarded to a small military research facility hundreds of miles away. By the end of the day, a field expedition had already been assembled. Officially, the mission was labeled a geological survey. Unofficially, everyone involved understood the truth. They were being sent to investigate something that should not exist. 3 days later, a convoy of military vehicles arrived at the base of the plateau. The team consisted of 12 personnel, engineers, geologists, and a small security unit led by Sergeant Nathan Hale. The desert sun was beginning to set as the soldiers stepped out of the vehicles. Above them, the mountain ridge stretched across the horizon like a jagged wall of stone. From the outside, nothing about the plateau looked unusual, just cliffs, dust, and wind. But according to the satellite scans, something enormous was hidden beneath that rock. Something that had been buried there for a very long time. Dr. Elena Navarro approached Sergeant Hale holding a tablet filled with satellite data. "The entrance should be along this ridge," she said. She pointed toward a section of the mountainside halfway up the slope. Hale studied the rock face. "I don't see anything." Navarro nodded. "That's the strange part." They began climbing. The ascent was slow. Loose stones slid under their boots as they worked their way up the ridge. The desert wind blew steadily across the mountains. But as the team approached the coordinates on Navarro's tablet, the wind suddenly stopped. The air became unnaturally still. One of the soldiers frowned. "You feel that?" Another nodded. "Yeah. It's like the air just stopped moving." Navarro reached the exact coordinates and stared at the rock wall. At first there was nothing. Then she brushed away a thin layer of sand. A perfectly straight line appeared in the stone. Hale stepped closer. "That's not natural." Navarro continued clearing sand away. More lines appeared, edges, angles, until the shape became clear. A massive doorway carved directly into the mountainside. The entrance had been buried by centuries of wind-blown sand, but the structure beneath was still intact, precise, symmetrical, almost mechanical. "Looks like we found it," Hale said. It took nearly an hour to remove enough debris to clear the entrance. When the final stones were pulled away, a blast of cold air rushed from the darkness inside. The temperature dropped instantly. Navarro shined her flashlight into the opening. The beam revealed a long tunnel descending deep into the mountain. The walls were smooth, carved, engineered, but not with any construction method anyone recognized. There were no support beams, no concrete, just perfectly shaped stone. "This structure is ancient," Navarro said quietly. "How ancient?" Hale asked. She hesitated. "Possibly thousands of years." One of the engineers laughed nervously. "No one carved tunnels like this thousands of years ago." Navarro didn't respond. Instead, she stepped into the tunnel. The soldiers followed. Their flashlights cut through the darkness as they descended. With every step, the air grew colder. The desert heat disappeared behind them. The deeper they went, the wider the tunnel became. After nearly 15 minutes of walking, the passage suddenly opened into a cavern. The team stopped immediately. The space before them was enormous. The ceiling stretched hundreds of feet overhead. Massive pillars carved from stone supported the cavern roof. But what truly caught their attention were the structures. Stone buildings carved directly into the rock. Walls, platforms, towering formations of ancient architecture. "This isn't a cave," Navarro whispered. Hale slowly scanned the chamber with his flashlight. "What is it?" Navarro shook her head. "I don't know." The soldiers began exploring the cavern. Symbols were carved into the walls, strange shapes etched deep into the stone. None of them matched any known language. But the most disturbing discovery lay at the far end of the chamber. Bones. Massive skeletal remains scattered across the cavern floor. Some were the size of vehicles, others stretched across the ground like twisted bridges of bone. The soldiers moved closer, cautiously. "These aren't animals," one of them said quietly. Navarro examined the skeletons. The bone structures were wrong. Too many limbs, strange skull shapes, some curved backward like blades. "These weren't human," she said, "and they weren't anything we've ever cataloged." Hale looked around the cavern again. More bones, dozens of them, many cracked, broken, shattered, like something had destroyed them. A battlefield. Something terrible had happened here, long before humans arrived. Then one of the engineers shouted, "Sergeant!" The team rushed over. Half buried in the dust was a rusted military vehicle. United States Army markings were barely visible on its surface. Hale stared at it in disbelief. "That's impossible." He recognized the model instantly. It belonged to a classified expedition that had disappeared nearly 20 years earlier. The entire team had vanished without a trace. Until now. The soldiers stood in silence. Then the radios crackled. Static filled the cavern. Every radio began receiving the same signal, a repeating tone. Navarro looked at Hale. "Are we broadcasting?" "No." The tone changed. A voice emerged from the signal, distorted, slow. "You came back." The transmission repeated. "You came back." Something moved in the darkness beyond the cavern. Flashlights swung toward the far tunnels. A shadow slipped across the stone, too fast to identify. Then another. Something was moving deeper inside the underground city, and it was heading toward them. The team followed the signal deeper through the tunnels. What they discovered beneath the mountain changed everything. The tunnels continued for miles. Massive caverns connected by carved passageways, ancient structures, collapsed walls, ruins of something that looked like an entire underground civilization. And everywhere they looked, there were signs of conflict. Broken architecture, scattered bones, massive impact scars carved into the stone. A war had been fought beneath the earth, one that had never reached the surface. And according to the radio signals, something from that war had survived. Hours later, the team reached the deepest chamber yet. At the center of the cavern stood something unexpected, a tower, constructed from both ancient stone and modern equipment, radio transmitters, antennas, military communication gear, all connected together. Someone had been studying the signal, someone from the lost expedition, but they had not survived. A shape emerged from the darkness beside the tower, tall, thin, moving in unnatural ways. The creature studied them silently. Then it spoke, using Hale's voice. "You came back." The soldiers fired. Gunfire echoed through the cavern. The creature disappeared into the tunnels. but the signal continued broadcasting. Hale realized what had happened. The thing beneath the mountain wasn't just alive. It had learned how to imitate, learned how to transmit, learned how to call for more humans. The signal had been bait. Within hours, command ordered the mountain sealed. Explosives were placed throughout the tunnels. As the team retreated toward the surface, the signal followed them. The voice repeated across every radio frequency. "You came back." The final explosion collapsed the entrance. The mountain sealed itself again. Weeks later, the satellite network detected something strange. New tunnels forming beneath the desert, and a signal broadcasting across the airwaves. "You came back."